Hey guys, it's Craig Beamer, and today I want to answer some of the most frequent questions I see asked on forums, so that way you don't have to ask it again. This is kind of for beginner BMW owners, but I see this stuff asked all the time, so I figured why not make a video to show some of these people. This is going to apply for most of the E9 inline 6 engines, because they share a lot of the same issues, and most of them are not too major. So I'm demonstrating on my 2006 325i with the N52 engine. The first thing that I see people asking all the time in forums is about a ticking noise from the engine. It is just lifter tick. It's common on all these engines, and it's typically nothing to worry about. Some conditions it's louder than it is other times, but just driving, it'll go away, and it's pretty much never anything to worry about. You're not about to spin a bearing or anything, but you'll hear it in here, just kind of a clicking sound, and it's nothing to worry about. That is a perfectly healthy sounding BMW motor. Alright, the next common thing that I see people asking on forums is smoke from this side of the engine. It is typically not an exhaust leak. It's usually a valve cover gasket leak, which is very common on all of the N52, 54, 55, and so on. They all tend to leak from the valve cover gasket eventually, and it'll cause oil to leak onto the exhaust manifold and then vaporize and then go into your HVAC. It's nothing to be too concerned about. You could just tell your friends that you have a burning oil scented air freshener, but it is common. It'll typically happen around every 80,000 miles or so, sometimes less, sometimes more. That would be your valve cover gasket. That also goes for oil in here, around your Valvetronic, and of course around the edge of the valve cover. Alright, the next common thing that I see people asking forums about is a high-pitched squeal or whistle coming from the engine bay. It happens more so often with the later engines with plastic valve covers, but what it is the PCV system failing. It also fails on these ones. Just another thing that typically happens if you hear any type of high-pitched squeal, it's usually the PCV or CCV as BMW calls it, but it's the crankcase ventilation system. One way you can test the functionality of yours is while the engine's running, you open up the oil fill, and if the engine starts to stall out a bit, your PCV system is not doing its job properly. Just keep in mind, if you do hear a whistling, if you don't address it in time, it will blow the gaskets all around the engine if they're not blown already. So that includes your valve cover gasket, your oil pan gasket, and your oil filter housing gasket. It will blow all those gaskets because it'll have too much pressure within the engine and blow those gaskets. Okay, so this next one involves the check control system, which is separate from engine issues, but tells you about other sensors and different hardware issues throughout your car. But it confuses a lot of people because it's a big light on their dash. So typically this icon, and this one, they confuse people on the forums. So for example, this one is telling me that I don't have any wash fluid in my wash reservoir. This one is pretty universal. It can tell you a lot of things, but mine is here because my rear brake wear sensor is completely severed. But I want to show you a trick. If you're unsure of what any of these mean, it will tell you the exact reason why it's on there. Like this one, this means watch out for ladybugs. It's ladybug season, watch out. Just kidding. But if you don't know what it means, what you do is you toggle to it, and then you hold down the BC button until this comes up. Check control ID number 87. So if you Google search CCID and then the number, it will tell you a whole list of what these mean. These are for my license plate lights. So they're kind of like check engine codes where they tell you what it is, which sensor is not working. So that's kind of a neat trick. So that's what that is, the check control system. It's very different from check engine. Which leads me to the last one, which is service engine soon / check engine light. Don't go on the forums with a picture of that and ask why this is happening, because usually there's no quick fix. Sometimes there is, but usually it's on for a reason, or it was on for a reason. And let me tell you, without knowing why it's there, no one on the forums is going to be able to tell you what's wrong. There is absolutely no way. You can guess based on symptoms, but their guess is as good as anyone else's. It's just a guess. So never ever go on the forums and just post, why do I have this, without reading the codes. So all it takes is you buy a code reader, an OBD2 code reader. You plug in right here, and they're cheap. You can buy like a super cheap one for like 20 bucks, and you read the code and it will tell you why it's there. If you post in the forums with, say, this is the code I have, what causes it, usually the code tells you directly what it is. Like, for example, a common one like camshaft position solenoid over bank 1 over retarded. It's basically telling you that the intake Vanos solenoid is underperforming. What does that mean? You replace it or you clean it. There's really not much to engine codes. They pretty much point you in the exact direction of the problem most of the time. Otherwise, sometimes you got to do some thinking and figure out what caused it to go off. But don't go on the forums and just ask people such a vague question about why is my check engine light here, at least without reading the codes. You look like an idiot, and you're probably going to get embarrassed. People are going to be dicks on the forums. I promise you that. So, don't be one of those guys. I understand that we've all been new to cars and BMWs, whatever, before. But just save yourself that, and everyone else too. Don't be one of those guys, because they can't help you. Just either read the codes or bring it to someone else. If you don't have a code reader, it probably means that you're unable to fix it yourself, or you either don't have the knowledge or the confidence to do so. So in that case, why do you even care to know what is wrong with your car? If you are going to fix it yourself, you should probably have a code reader. Otherwise, don't ask the forums. There's no benefit. So if you care to know, buy a code reader. The forums cannot tell you what is wrong with your car. Just with a picture of the SES light. So, that is all for today. Please do not do that. I see it way too often on the forums. And so those are 5 things that I see on the forums very frequently. And now you know. So, thanks for watching. And keep BMWing. Yeah.